Hey everyone, welcome to my channel, and thank you for joining me in today's video, where we'll explore 7 empowering strategies for putting narcissists in their place, while prioritizing our own mental well-being. Dealing with a narcissist can be a challenging and draining experience, but it is possible to assert yourself and put them in their place. But, before you take on board the task of putting a narcissist in their place, it's important to bear in mind that this is likely going to be the battle of your lifetime. If you have been allowing a narcissist to manipulate and control you for a long time, breaking free from their influence and reshaping the dynamics is definitely going to be an uphill struggle. However, despite the difficulty, you will be so glad you did. Interacting with a narcissist can be akin to navigating a complex maze, with twists and turns that often leaves you feeling disoriented and powerless. Narcissists have a knack for making you feel so bad that you change your behavior to what works in their favor. Their inflated sense of self-importance, manipulative tactics, and disregard for others' feelings can make it challenging to assert yourself effectively. However, understanding the dynamics at play and employing strategic approaches can empower you to reclaim your control and put a narcissist in their place. Nevertheless, before diving into these strategies, it's essential to understand that the key to understanding the narcissistic personality disorder lies in recognizing that their entire personality construct is based around a false self. They have a hyper-idealized perception of themselves that helps protect them from the harsh realities of the world. Narcissists often construct elaborate narratives to maintain their facade of superiority. If you refuse to buy into their distorted perceptions and manipulative tactics, and instead hold up a mirror to show them that you see them for who they truly are, it challenges the illusion of the false self, prompting them to confront the realization that they are trapped within a delusion. This can create intense embarrassment for the narcissist and can potentially plunge them into a complete crisis. Narcissists are wired to be abusive and can be rattled by the tiniest things. When angered, they might resort to name-calling, confrontation, hurling slurs, exhibiting closed-off behavior, or employing the silent treatment. Their ability to do so in a very calm and cold manner can be even more unsettling than an open rejection. However, it's important for you to realize that the narcissist in your life is not going to change. And you'll find relief when you understand that you can redirect your energy elsewhere. So, without much further ado, here are 7 strategies to put a narcissist in their place. A word of caution here. It will be the fight of your life, but it will be worth it. So, strategy number 1 is to defy the narcissist's self-centered worldview. Narcissists think of themselves as being superior, compelling, wonderful, charismatic, and charming. They tend to see people as things rather than individuals, and are primarily focused on their own wants and needs, often needing reminders that they are not the sole focus of the world. Just like the signs in zoos that caution against feeding animals, it's crucial not to feed the narcissist's ego. Showering them with praise only exacerbates their instability and reinforces their belief in their superiority. This behavior doesn't uplift them, instead, it fuels their abusive tendencies. By refusing to indulge their ego, you defy the narcissist's self-centered worldview. So, when you defy that vision of themselves as being all-important, the center of the universe, magnetically seductive, and alluring, you disrupt their self-image. When you cease to seek their attention, maybe you stop chasing after them, not respond to their calls, or subtly conveying through your actions that you're not particularly impressed by them and can manage without their presence in your life. By demonstrating that they are not indispensable to you, you employ the first tactic in defying their self-centered worldview. Now, strategy number 2 is to defy their preconceived perception of you, and this is when you behave in a manner that contradicts their preconceived notion of you. It's very challenging to deal with somebody with narcissistic personality disorder due to their inflexibility, stubbornness, and rigidity. Narcissists are particularly rigid in their view of the external world, of which you are a part. They fail to see you as an autonomous individual, separate from themselves. In their worldview, there's only one human, themselves, while everyone else is viewed as objects, mere tools to serve their needs. When they get to know you, they have a very rigid, stubborn, preconceived, and often overly simplistic view of who you are. So, they have this fabricated grandiose perception of themselves, viewing themselves as omnipotent, exquisite, omniscient, highly significant, and exceptionally unique. But then they also seem to have, a distorted or flawed view of other people, especially their intimate partners, children, or close colleagues. Their understanding of you is skewed, significantly inaccurate, or misaligned with reality. Invariably, over the course of a relationship with a narcissist, you may have observed first-hand instances where they demonstrate a markedly inaccurate perception of you. They might confidently assert beliefs such as, "You're the kind of person who always does X," or "I know you enjoy doing Y," leaving you perplexed as you internally question, "I would never engage in X. I actually dislike Y. Where are they getting this from?" Despite your disbelief, they express these convictions with unwavering certainty. So, they have this false self that shields them from the realities of the world. Additionally, they have a false or delusional perception of you as their intimate partner, spouse, child, or parent, which is entirely fabricated. Therefore, when you demonstrate behaviors that defy their narrow, simplistic perception of you, thus exposing their delusions, it can trigger a sense of narcissistic mortification. Now remember, narcissists are emotionally immature, like a toddler trapped in an adult body. So, this flawed perception of you is very much akin to a child's crayon drawing. It's a childish, naive, and delusional worldview, reminiscent of a toddler's understanding. Their view of you will probably be sort of embarrassingly stereotypical and cliched, steeped in odd ethnic and gender fallacies, reflecting an overly rigid and caricatured view of your identity. So, when you behave in a manner that contradicts their preconceived perception of you, when you demonstrate behaviors that defy their narrow, simplistic perception of you, thus exposing their delusions, it can also trigger a sense of narcissistic humiliation and shame and put them in their place. The third strategy involves turning the tables on the narcissist. So, you see, ultimately, within a relationship with a narcissist, their intention is solely to draw you in and form a close bond with you, only to eventually discard you. This is always the end goal of the narcissist. Otherwise, you're not talking about the narcissistic personality disorder, you're talking about something else. Thus, regardless of the pretext, be it differences in friendships, political ideologies, or alleged actions or statements, you are always going to be discarded. You were not chosen to be cherished, but rather to be used and then discarded. This outcome is always the end goal. When you play the reverse Uno card, which means that you start diminishing their value and rejecting them, through your metacommunication or nonverbal cues. If you really start looking at them like, "Wow, I thought you were highly intelligent, but it's becoming apparent that you're rather dim-witted," or "I thought you were really charming and powerful, but it turns out you're actually a dull, deceitful fraud who incessantly repeats themselves and tells numerous lies." At that point, you're automatically and instinctively beginning to devalue them. They'll sense this shift, triggering the anxiety within them and initiating the onset of narcissistic mortification. If you then proceed to discard them after devaluing them, which is what they were going to do to you, it renders them insignificant. Anything that diminishes their importance makes them feel as though they're facing their own demise. As their false self loses its vitality and begins to fade, they panic, because they perceive it as a threat to their very existence, because all they ever had was their false delusional self. Now, strategy number 4 is to point out their mistakes. Here once again, we're orbiting around the concept of defying the false self. Let's imagine that the narcissist falls somewhere on the spectrum between narcissism and psychopathy, which is a common occurrence. These individuals are prone to breaking boundaries, pushing limits, and exhibiting self-destructive tendencies, and they tend, over time, to overplay their hand. So, let's say that they venture into unfamiliar territory, an area where they lack expertise or any substantial experience, and where their control is limited. Now, in this domain, they start making blunders or mistakes. So, if you point out their mistakes or subtly communicate, while maintaining a calm demeanor, that you're aware that some of the things that they've told you are simply incorrect, and you possess evidence to support this. You subtly convey that you've identified a reliable source contradicting much of what they assert, and that you have concrete evidence demonstrating the inaccuracy of their claims. Narcissists are hyper-aware and hyper-vigilant, particularly if you're their significant other. They'll continuously monitor what you're aware of, and what information you possess, evaluating whether their deceitful facade, the charlatanism of their false self that they're projecting onto you, is working or not. Narcissists love to boast about their brilliance, expertise, and qualifications, claiming knowledge and proficiency in various areas, and when you subtly reveal to them that their assertions are untrue, and point out their mistakes without directly confronting them. This subtle challenge to their infallibility can drive them to frustration as it undermines their false self, resulting in narcissistic mortification. What I've noticed is that in such situations, their next response tends to be of rage. They will say you are insane, and they'll vehemently lash out at the source that exposed their falsehoods. That's an indication that you have them in a tight spot. Next, strategy number 5 is to stop feeding the beast. The 5th strategy I'm going to recommend directly targets their false self. To diminish their power, you must stop providing them with narcissistic supply. By withholding supply, you deprive them of the reinforcement they crave, rendering them insignificant. Here, it's not about transitioning from adoration, worship, and respect, to rudeness, loathing, disrespect, and contempt. That's not the goal. Instead, the key is to dial down all emotional engagement. You simply reduce the emotional intensity in your interactions with them. You might start by subtly indicating through your metacommunication that you find them somewhat boring, and politely tolerate their tendency to philosophize and inflate their own importance. If you've had experience with narcissists, you'll recognize their habit of delivering self-glorifying monologues, almost like a stand-up comedian doing a bit, or a politician's lengthy speeches, where they often engage in self-praise, portraying themselves as morally upright and dedicated to their principles. Therefore, if you start sort of pulling away, withdrawing, and reducing your emotional involvement, you diminish the narcissistic supply. Responding with distress, pleading for leniency, tears, outrage, threats of consequences, or visible agitation all contribute to emotional content, which you don't want. Thus, to minimize the supply, it's imperative to detach emotionally. Next, strategy number 6 is to get on with your life. The 6th strategy, which is the healthiest and most beneficial, involves focusing on yourself and moving on with your life. In narcissistically abusive relationships, there's an unfortunate tendency in the victims, because you've so often been brainwashed, to become psychologically conditioned by the narcissist, to revolve your life around them, akin to a sunflower turning towards the sun. Over time, in narcissistically abusive relationships, the repeated insistence of, look at me, is like someone grabbing your head and directing your attention towards them. Your brain becomes conditioned to think of yourself as resembling a child in relation to a parent, constantly trying to attune yourself to the narcissist's thoughts and actions. This persistent behavior conditions your brain to believe that your significance and meaning comes solely from the narcissist, and they alone should be the focus of your attention. This deliberate brainwashing technique aims to erode your ego boundaries and establishes them as the ultimate authority in your life. When you consciously redirect and break free from this pattern, you turn your focus toward the direction you desire to pursue. Instead of fixating on the false allure they project, you orient yourself towards the genuine joys in life, and you move forward. By fully immersing yourself in your own life, without feeling the need to revisit them, or initiate contact to resolve matters or seek closure, you will defy their false self as being all-important, powerful, and the center of the universe, thus causing narcissistic mortification. Next, strategy number 7 is to individuate and mature emotionally. Step 7 once again emphasizes the importance of adopting healthy perspectives and behaviors, which can be incredibly empowering. After being subjected to prolonged manipulation by a narcissist, you may find yourself adopting their narcissistic way of thinking, which is regrettable and a terrible shame, but that's the way it works. However, your goal should not be to seek revenge, torment, or punish the narcissist. Instead of retaliating or trying to prove superiority, focus on transcending the cycle of tit-for-tat battles. Your objective is to individuate, mature emotionally, rise above the situation, and use it as an opportunity for personal growth and development. If your aim is to not just survive, but thrive in your life, it's essential to prioritize your personal growth, become more adult, become more individuated, and become more emotionally mature. Your pursuit of independence and emotional maturity can be profoundly unsettling for narcissists, and can drive them completely insane, as deep down, albeit unconsciously, they want you to mirror their own traits. They kind of want you to be a version of them. There's a subconscious inclination to mold you into a reflection of themselves, to turn you into them, thus fulfilling their ego's desires. It's as if they seek to assemble a legion of obedient followers, akin to brainwashed zombies, undead beings, White Walkers, and vampire minions, with them being at the helm, as the reigning monarch. Therefore, when you individuate, you assert, "No, I refuse to conform to your desires. I am an individual, distinct from you." This declaration marks the pinnacle of defiance. I am a separate human being. I existed before you, and I will continue to exist after you. You were merely a brief, insignificant chapter in my life. This stance inflicts the most severe narcissistic wound possible. When dealing with a narcissist, learning to say no firmly and confidently can be a game changer. Be clear about what your boundaries are and don't let them cross them. Don't let yourself be pressured. Narcissists will try to rush you and force you into doing things that you don't want to do, to get something they want. Don't let them. You owe it to yourself to speak up for yourself and not allow yourself to be pushed into doing something you don't want to do. Refuse to be controlled or manipulated, and prioritize your own needs and well-being. Pursue your interests and goals without seeking validation or approval from the narcissist. By demonstrating your autonomy, you undermine their attempts to exert power over you. Remember that you are not responsible for the narcissist's behavior or happiness. Their actions are a reflection of their own insecurities and limitations, and not your worth as a person. Maintain perspective, and refuse to internalize their criticisms or manipulations. Focus on moving forward with your life, maturing emotionally, and striving to live your best life. If you are an empath dealing with a narcissist, I hope you feel more at peace now, knowing that there are tactics for putting narcissists in their place. In conclusion, putting a narcissist in their place requires assertiveness, boundary setting, and emotional resilience. Refrain from getting emotionally entangled in their games or seeking validation from them. Instead, focus on cultivating inner strength and self-assurance. Practice self-care activities that promote relaxation and emotional stability, such as mindfulness, meditation, or spending time with supportive friends and family. By implementing these strategies and prioritizing your well-being, you can reclaim your power and maintain your sense of self in the face of manipulation and toxicity. Remember, you deserve to be treated with respect and dignity in all your relationships. So, I hope this helps you. If this content was helpful, please consider sharing and subscribing to my channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. Always feel free to share your experiences in the comment section below. I express my gratitude to everyone for tuning in and watching. Let us help spread the awareness and lead healthier and fulfilling lives.